we have here Val Skarbek, who's joining us to do an interview about her experiences working at Purgatory Resort. Her title here working at Fort Lewis College is Access Services Librarian, and she's also certified as a snow sports instructor at Purgatory. So she's here to join us today to chat about her experiences there. So Val, can you please tell us how you got involved in the ski industry?
Sure. I first moved to Durango in June of 2011, and I made a friend who used to be, she at the time was a snowboard instructor, and she was about to move to Vail, and she said, you know, you used to be a teacher and you were a public school teacher, you should be a ski instructor. And I said, well, I'm not that great of a skier, I'll be honest. Back then, you know, I'd only skied, I don't know, I'd skied growing up a little bit back on the East Coast, and I skied a little bit, you know, in Colorado when I first moved to the Denver area. And I went and interviewed and was hired. They loved the fact that I had a background as a former public school teacher. And I ended up starting there in December of 2011, the 2011-12 season, and absolutely fell in love with it. And Purg's been like a family ever since. So
interesting, thank you.
Yeah.
So what is the process of getting hired as an instructor at Purgatory?
Well, that's a great question, and it varies year by year. Typically, it depends on who the manager is that year, and typically what Purgatory does is they have a big job fair in the fall, usually at the fairgrounds, and sometimes they'll come on campus here at Fort Lewis, where they'll go and they'll have other events. You can apply, I believe you can also apply online. And then what happens is you apply, and then you are usually interviewed at that fairgrounds. It's almost like a cattle call, and they have all the different divisions like food and beverage and parking and whatever. And then what happens is after you're interviewed, depending on how you do, you should bring a resume, so be prepared and have a copy of your resume with the types of skills and background and things that you've done that could relate to being an instructor. And then what happens is they'll usually do an interview session. After they do that interview session, they'll do a could be 1 or 2 day like a trial, like on snow, where you'll ski or snowboard with other potential instructors and you'll go out with very experienced instructors who will then, they call it the hiring clinic. And then they'll go through that process, and they'll see how you react to different situations. They'll take you out of your comfort zone. They'll see how you react to that. They'll have you possibly practice teaching something to see what your mannerisms are and how you interact with other people. And and it's not necessarily teaching a ski or snowboard skill. It could be teaching something else. So, and then they make the hiring decisions, and then they go from there. So.
Now, is that process true just for the first year, or do you go through that same process if you're going to work the following year or year after that?
It's a great question. So it depends. If you have continued your employment at Purgatory and you keep getting good reviews, you have an end-of-year annual review. So as long as your review has been good and that you're recommended for rehire, then you don't have to go through another hiring clinic. I do have a friend of mine who left for several years and then came back, and then they had him go through as just to see what was new or what was going on and to have him along. So, but usually once you've done it once, you don't have to do it again.
Great,
so,
thank you.
You're welcome.
What characteristics make someone successful in that position?
Okay. I'd be lying if I didn't say a little bit of athleticism. So you have to have a desire to learn, and you have to have the ability to be flexible, and not just physically flexible, but just flexible as far as a schedule, flexible as far as being comfortable with your clients, with the weather, being able to respond to different situations. You are doing something that could be very dangerous, and people can and do get hurt. So you have to be prepared for how to handle the unexpected. And then also a desire, really deep down, you have to have that desire to want to share your passion for snow sports. So whether it's skiing, snowboarding, snow biking, whatever it is, being passionate about it and being able to and being willing to break that down and help someone else foster that passion. At Purgatory, we get a lot of beginner and lower level intermediate lessons. We do sometimes have more advanced skiers and snowboarders and whatnot, but a majority of our business is introduction to the sport. So it's not it's not a cheap sport by any means, so people are spending a lot of money to be there, and you want to make them feel comfortable, you want to make them feel welcome, and you want to make them feel success, regardless of what their abilities are. You will have a broad range of abilities, so and good communication skills too. So,
can you please describe what a typical shift is like in your position?
Okay, so it slightly varies depending on the time of season about what time you need to arrive. It all depends on if it's our busy season and it's like during Christmas break or spring break in March, all of the different spring breaks. You want to arrive early. Regardless, you still want to arrive early. You want to get there early, put your boots on, get your coat on, whatever gear you're going to wear, make sure everything's ready, go to the bathroom because that might be the only time until lunch you get a chance to go. The important things, thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the most basic needs first. You know, make sure you're fed, you're well hydrated, and you've met those needs. And then you'll typically go up to lineup and you'll meet with either this kid side or the adult side, depending on what division you're working for. Sometimes if you're there early enough, sometimes they'll take, and they have time, they'll do what's called an 8:30 run in the morning sometimes. They've done that in the past where the instructors will get to take a lift up before the lifts have officially opened and take a run to kind of see what the conditions are for the day, or, you know, stretch your legs, or maybe go on a run that you wouldn't, they decide, and you all have to go on the same run together, by the way, so you don't get to just pick your favorite run. Everybody sticks together because if anybody gets hurt, you need to stick together and help each other out. And then you'll meet down, you have your lesson, you'll get your assignment depending on what it is. And then depending on how many people show up for lessons that day, some reserve, some walk up to the window. So they always have more, they try to have more instructors than needed because we don't know what the abilities of these the patrons and the clients will be that day. So after they are met and we figure out what what level they are, we will be assigned to different classes. You'll go out with your class. You'll teach your class. It might be a morning class only. It might be a full day class, and then you have lunch, a break for lunch. And then if you don't have an afternoon class, then you report back after lunch and see if there are any more classes that come up. And then if you don't get an afternoon class or a morning class, you do other assignments. So if they need help shoveling out Animas City for the kids runs, you know, you need to make sure that areas are safe, or we need help on the magic carpet, or whatever it is. Then you would do those assignments, or you might be free for the rest of the day and you get to go ski or snowboard by yourself and have fun. So it all varies. There's never like a typical day. Average hours might be about 7.5 hours of pay, and then it could be, you know, you're there actually from, you know, 7:30, 7:45 in the morning until 4:30. So.
Can you talk about the size of the classes, and does that depend on their ability for how many students you might get in each class?
Yes, sizes can vary. It depends on the time of year, how many instructors we have, what the ability levels are. Typically on the magic carpet with the kids that are 4 and 5 years old, we try to keep those classes to 5 or fewer. If they're 3 years old, they have to have, there's fewer in a class then, and that's more of like learning about it. They don't always have specific classes, you know, of like a group class for 3-year-olds. It depends on the year, it depends on the products that they're offering that year at PERG. And then you also have in the adult, or the older classes, and then the adult side, it could be 5 to 10. I have had larger classes when we had large groups come in that were not expected. So I think the largest class I ever taught might have been 15 or 17.
Wow.
So but that was one time. And then I've also had other classes that I've split with another instructor. So there were 2 of us on a class of like 12, and we worked together. So because we had 2 groups of students that were so similar or were very close, and they had siblings that wanted to be together. I predominantly work kid side, but on the adult world, and then there's private lessons too. So you could end up with you know, a small group of one-on-one with a private lesson up to maybe a group of 6.
Wow.
So.
What is your favorite?
That's really tough. It depends on the day. I like to have variety. So I really enjoy, you know, sometimes I don't mind a day on the magic carpet. You know, it's a lot of physical work on the magic carpet, but it's a lot of fun, and they can be so cute. And then there are some days like I love I'd say if I had like a specialty, I like working with moms that are around my age in that mid 30 to 40 range and who have kids, either who have not skied that often or haven't skied in a long time or snowboarded, and they want to go out with their kids. So I love to do, like, they're called friends and family lessons. Those are my favorite. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Val is certified in teaching skiing, snowboarding, and snowbiking. So can you talk to us about the opportunities to advance in this position and include some of those details about the certification process?
Okay, so there are 3 levels through PSIA is the Professional Ski Instructors of America, and AASI is the American Association of Snowboard Instructors. And there's always 3 levels. There's level 1, 2, and 3. And level 1 is more of like an introductory, like becoming an instructor. It's not required to be certified to be an instructor at Purgatory, but Purgatory is great because it does offer opportunities for pay advancements if you get these advanced certifications. And at least in the time that I've been there, they've offered opportunities for reimbursement. So you pay for your dues, which I think this past year were $185, I think, for the year. I'm trying to remember. And you pay for your dues, and then you also have to pay every 2 years. You need to do continuing education once you get your certifications, so you don't lose your certifications. So there's level 1, which they're always 3 days long. The 1 day is a classroom, well, it could be classroom day or movement analysis. When you get to levels 2 and 3, you usually do movement analysis on the snow, but sometimes they might have an indoor event where you're watching a video. I've seen over the last 6 years that I've worked at Purgatory, I've seen where PSIA and AASI has slightly changed some things in the process. There's little tweaks, and that's always evolving. And so there's a movement analysis of looking at other riders or snow skiers, seeing what they're doing, and then trying to prescribe lessons or ideas or suggestions for how to improve, or what would be an example of an activity you would do with that person to help them improve and get to the next level. And then there's also a skier riding day where you have to perform certain maneuvers. And then the third, one of the days, and I can't remember the exact order of which day is which, and then another day is a teach day. So you and the group of other instructors who are trying to get certified have to teach different things. And it's sometimes for my level 1 in snowboarding or skiing, it was the different parts of a lesson throughout from the introduction to the closure. So everybody had a different part. When you get up to the higher levels, like levels 2 and 3, sometimes they have you pull out of a hat and they'll say, okay, board performance might be like pivot, and you have this kind of student. They'll give you like a fake student, or or this kind of terrain, or whatever it is. So you have to figure out something to make it work. So being able to think on the fly, performing well under pressure, it's stressful. There's also other certifications for like there's a CS1 and a CS2, which is child specialist, and I have my child specialist level 1, and I am all but had almost all of my maneuvers passed for my freestyle specialist exam for skiing, and twisted my ankle and ended up, I passed the teach, and that one they only do as a 1 day, and the child specialist they do as a 1 day event. But I almost passed my freestyle exam, but got hurt. So that happens.
So there's lots of opportunities to show Purgatory or your resort that you're committed to improving your instructing skills.
Yes, and it's nice to keep learning new things, and by taking continuing ed credits, there are also scholarships available either through PSIA, AASI, or through Purgatory itself. There's both, and you can apply for scholarships because some people will say, well, the money. Like, it's an investment in your education and your professionalism, and you make it, this is almost like a job. Like, you can make of it what you want. So if you're really motivated and you're great with recruiting clients and getting business cards printed, and which are not that expensive, they usually run a deal with Office Depot in town for us, and and you can build and you find ways to differentiate yourself from other instructors to really help. It's like almost any sales job. Following up with the clients, texting them, taking pictures or videos during the lessons, things like that have helped me build like a private client base, which has helped. So
Right. So you have clients who then would request you for future lessons because they've had such a great experience.
Correct, exactly. And that's always great because A, you know who you're working with,
Right.
and B, private requests, at least in the past, have paid more money versus a private assigned lesson. So, and it's all dependent on your certification level. So you get paid more depending on how much you are certified, how far you've gone in the certification processes. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, Val, will you please tell us what your favorite parts of your job are and then the most challenging parts of your job?
Okay. So favorite parts for me, I'm very much a people person, so I love meeting new people and getting them excited about the sport and wanting to learn. Building long-term relationships with some of my returning clients and seeing especially like moms and their kids, and we get to be friends on Facebook, and then I get to see their kids grow up, or they'll send me messages and say, oh, they did this, or they get really excited, you know, to have that relationship with somebody. And then probably the most challenging aspect of the job, it can definitely be the weather. So the weather can range. I mean, it's Colorado, so you could have 5 seasons in a day. But the hardest part, sometimes, it's trying to be prepared for the unexpected. It's when it's super cold and making sure maybe you've stocked up in advance in the season, you know, to get some hand warmers or whatnot, because it might cost you 88 cents to $1 or so for some hand warmers, but that might equal to a tip later on to, you know, to a parent when their little one is freezing, or just get you through the lesson with a little guy or girl who is really having a hard time, and their parents may not have prepared them for the elements. Many of these people have never done this before. So you will sometimes discover that your student has a pair of jeans on underneath ski pants, and it's also happens to be 65 degrees that day, and you can't figure out why they're not moving, and it's super hot, and that's why. It's because they're not comfortable. It could be, you know, making sure you have extra sunblock, you know, all those weather things. When it's freezing cold, knowing when's a good day to take a hot cocoa break and when they don't really need it. You know, weather is tough. And then also, when I've had a couple clients that have gotten hurt. Sometimes through their own decisions, and sometimes through things that were unexpected. It was another snowboarder, somebody who was a beginner who came down and went through a lesson I was teaching and knocked one little girl clear out of her skis and launched her, and I had to get patrol. And, you know, seeing people get hurt, it can be difficult. I've been really lucky, knock on wood, that nobody has gotten too hurt that they couldn't keep skiing or snowboarding, or that they never wanted to do it again. However, that, you know, it tugs at your heartstrings, because you don't want anybody to get hurt, but sometimes you can't protect everybody, and all you can do is teach people how to be safe on the mountain and how to be good mountain citizens. And when I taught locals lessons, because there's snow burners, and I taught that for many years, I would always teach my students to always ask other people, you know, when they see people down, are you okay? And some people, they get upset when they see a little kid come up to them and say, are you okay? But I think it makes them good snow citizens up there, you know, to say, look out for other people, always pay attention to what's going on, and look before you leap, check stuff out before you just go hucking off a jump and things. So that's how people usually get hurt. So
Good, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, my last question is about trends you might have noticed and how that might impact the position in the future. What do you expect snow sport instruction to look like in the next few years?
Trend-wise, there are a couple things. You'll see that some things have always stayed the same. Like, gear will continue to improve. Skis will continue to get better because of the technology from snowboards. That's actually how most skis were improved. And you know, you'll see twin tips, and you'll see different structural differences. Climate change does have an impact, because weather does impact business. And if clients know that Purgatory is not getting good snow, we've seen it just this past season, and we've seen it in the past. If they don't get a lot of snow, some clients will cancel. They don't want to spend the money on their vacation, and they'll end up going somewhere else, and that happens. We are a smaller, family-friendly resort. In the past, we've won several awards from TripAdvisor as like the most family-friendly, affordable type vacation. So that being the case, you have to remember these people, this is not Telluride, this is not Vail, this is not Aspen. The money, the pay, the tips, all of those things, it's different. A lot of people start at Purgatory, and I've seen them move on to bigger resorts. Several will go to Telluride. I know people have gone to Copper, Vail, Aspen, and they love it. And this is what became their career for them. You know, maybe they went here for college, they worked for several years at Purgatory, and then they graduated, and then they did different things. But I do know several instructors in different areas, and some will also go during the summer. They'll move to like New Zealand or you know, opposite seasons of us. So being aware that it is a job that is climate dependent, to be flexible and multi-talented, and knowing that if things don't go well or you don't get as many lessons, you have to figure out other ways to make the rent and pay the bills. So those are some trends that I can see for a lot of instructors to pay attention to. Being able to be flexible. And then also, it's interesting, there's always different things that come up on the horizon with the snow sports industry. The environment's a big issue. Sometimes you'll look at, you know, liability in the skier's code. Sometimes there are deaths. Every year there are at least a few, at least sometimes there's, I'm not saying at least, but every year there are, you'll hear different accidents have happened or fatalities. And those are things that you have to be aware of. Like, in the past there have been sometimes people getting hurt on lifts, sometimes being hurt hitting trees. We've had it here at Purgatory. We've seen it at other mountains, small mountains, Ski Granby, you know, other resorts, that you always want to be aware and be careful, because Mother Nature is unforgiving, and it's a very, it's an ever-changing climate. So something that looked one way in the morning will change during the day. So by the end of the day, it might be totally different than what it looked like in the morning. So, so those are the biggest things I think to be aware of in the future of the industry. And then I always wonder, you know, will skiers and snowboarders and instructors, will there be unions? It's a good question. You know, there are always some people who do this as their part-time fun job, which is me. There are people who do this as their full-time job to make the bills. And then there's some people that will switch between the two. Maybe they've done it full-time, then they go back to part-time. You know, people have different reasons for being instructors. So there's a lot of different reasons. You have to figure out if your reasons mesh with helping you be a successful instructor. If you're just doing it for the money, sometimes it's not a guarantee. So it's good to have backup skills.
Good. Well, I like your comments about being proactive rather than reactive about our future trends.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for your time,
You're
Val.
welcome.
It was a pleasure to have you. I hope you enjoyed learning about what it's like to be a snow sports instructor at Purgatory from Val Skarbek. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And can I give a shameless plug for the library?
Absolutely.
So at the library, we're here to help you with many different things. And whether it's research or looking for information, there's many ways to reach us on our library website, library.fortlewis.edu. There's 24/7 chat, which is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, except for I think it's Christmas and New Year's. So I don't think you're doing schoolwork then anyway. And also come and don't be afraid to come in and see us. And we're here to help you, and we really want you to be successful here. And if you want to learn more about becoming a ski or snowboard instructor, please go to www.thesnowpros.org. So that's AASI and PSIA's website. So you can learn more about being a snowboard or ski instructor. So.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.